First, let me say welcome to all of you this afternoon. So many of my friends have been texting me on the island, and they, you're up there with all them bougie people, and I was like, yeah, we are. But one of the things that I think that we're all finding, quite frankly, is the idea that if you're walking around Edgartown, and that's a little shocking to see us there, or in Oak Bluffs in the evening, just to see us having kind of peace, quite frankly, without any worry, is really extraordinary. And it speaks to the sadness that we don't have that enough, but it also speaks to, in a kinder, gentler way than what we saw in Montgomery. The idea that we are a family, and it's a wonderful feeling. Let me just say, to thank the team with Black Enterprise. They worked very hard to not only put this event on, but to put a number of events on this week. Some of you have come to those, and it's been wonderful. Let me bring Genevieve Bryant up here. Genevieve, come on up here. Jen is with Black Enterprise. I'm just going to have her say hello. I know she's going to say, why'd you do that? But Jen, thank you, Charly. Jen is genuinely one of the loveliest people I know, and she takes care of me all the time. So just officially on behalf of Black Enterprise, let her say hello, and then we'll introduce you to these wonderful people.
Thank you, Ed. I paid him to say that. Well, welcome everyone to the BE House. And of course, Art on the Vineyard. My name is Genevieve Michelle. I'm Senior Vice President of Video and Events Programming. Productions at Black Enterprise. So there's some of our team back there, Akmarie, Renaa, Elisa, Gums, and Chanel and Asia, who are not here, but this is in Ed, of course. This is truly teamwork, and we really love what we do. So I'll just stop talking and turn it over to Ed.
And her name really is Genevieve Bryant, but she, that's that middle name. She's from the islands. I don't understand it half the time anyway. But let me quickly go into just the run of show, and then we'll jump right into it. You also will have an opportunity to ask questions. There'll be a Q&A at the end. And of course, the art that is here is for sale. We have 3 gallerists that are here. You'll be hearing from them in just a few moments. And Charly and Paul also have work that is being shown in galleries in Oak Bluff, and they'll tell you about that in just a few moments. So we'll also introduce you to some budding artists. I will say of both of them, and I would say the same, Candace, I bet, of you, in that they have not just sat on their laurels. They have reached out to younger artists and really have shown the way, and it really speaks to who they are as people. So without any further ado, we're just going to jump right into this. And what we'll do is we'll do a little conversation with the artist specifically. Then we're going to trade out with the gallerists. They'll take 3 seats, and we'll talk a little bit about investing and what they do. And then we'll bring all 6 up for the Q&A. So again, thank you so much for coming. Greatly appreciate it. So to my immediate left, let me introduce you to Candace Hunter. She's out of Chicago. She's a mixed media and collage painting. She does it all, installations. She's also an activist, and I think it's interesting because often artists are activists through their art and through their work. And she is out of Chicago. Were you born and raised in Chicago?
Absolutely.
So out of Chicago, please welcome her. Oh, okay.
I was born in Chicago too.
Everybody from the South Side. Everybody trying to be tough. South Side. I'm a roll around. See, but that's when you go to Chicago and see how deep in the South Side they'll go. But that's what you'll see.
Not during that.
Paul Goodnight also has a connection. Born in Chicago, and of course he's made his way to the Boston area, Roxbury, Mass, and New London, Connecticut. Paul is, one of the preeminent artists. I don't say black artists because we shortchange ourselves. One of the preeminent artists of our time. Paul is one of those names that early on our community embraced and certainly knew of. And, you know, I knew people who really, whether it was a print or whatever, when they had a good night, they said, I got a Paul good night. Okay, all right, sit down, sit down. But he is an extraordinary artist and, you know, just a wonderful person, studied at the Massachusetts College of Art, and was, as we say, passed down, mentored by a number of people, including the great John Biggers. And Paul is kind of like, you know, Prince was known for purple, and everybody has their signature, and Paul got them damn overalls. And so he has made his way. So please, Mr. Paul Goodnight. And another extraordinary talent is on the far end there, and that's Charly Palmer, Bachelor of Fine Arts, you know, at American Academy of Arts in where else? Chicago. So Chicago is well represented on the panel here. She's throwing up gang signs. Look at this. He also is one who gives back. He is given back to young people at Fisk, UCLA, Spelman, and Morehouse, just to name a few of the institutions. Please welcome Charly Palmer. Charly, let me, since the applause ended with you, let me start with you. Give us a sense of art in your life when you were little. Were you a doodler? Were you always drawing? Was the talent there immediately in terms of you knowing? Give us a sense of what that was.
All right, so like people that know me know that I'm blackety, black. But then it always starts with, oddly, the Beatles. And so that's where I can say I started. So I remember, because I remember when the Beatles came to America the first time, I was 4 years old. And I could not stop drawing Beatles, and more Beatles. They inspired me, and as I examined it later on, it's because they had a style, they had these great songs, they had an attitude of fun, playful, and so I was really excited about the Beatles. And so I started at 4, but I didn't think it was anything special about it because I had a younger brother and an older brother, and we all drew all the time. But I realized very early on that I had a passion. I'm gonna steal a story later on that was shared from Paul to me about John Biggers. And it's the thing I use with every artist that I work with now. Like, you told me that story, and I say it all the time because there's a difference in your commitment. But I'm glad to be on this stage right now, or on this ground right now, with this man. It's real, because I am who I am because this man believed in me, he challenged me, he's mentored me, and like, thank you. My wife met him for the first time a couple of days ago, and she said, he's so full of energy. I'm like, that's Paul all the time. So I'm honored to be here with this man because I am because of you.
Paul, let me ask the same of you. The idea was art flowing through you from as early as you can remember?
No. I drew. I have the story is, well, I drew to attract the opposite sex. That didn't work. But I remember drawing in English class little nudes, right, for, I think it was 25 cents. And then, 50 cents for a couple. Orgy was, I think, $1.25. But I got caught in English class doing that. And she told me to go down to, well, first of all, she said, go up to show the rest of the class what you've been drawing. And I was on the orgy right then. And I said, no, I can't do that. So as I started walking up to the head of the class, I started eating my drawing. $1.25. But she sent me down to the principal's office. The principal asked me what I was doing down here. I said, I don't know. She came down and she said he was drawing pornographic material. Principal said, what? He said, go home and tell your mother what you've been doing. And for the older people will understand this, but maybe the younger ones won't. I said, She said, "What are you doing home?" I said, "I was drawing phonographs." He said, "What?" The teacher said I was drawing phonographic material. So she was really mad then. And she told me to go up there with the principal and said, "What do you mean you're sending my son home for drawing phonograph?" He said, No. He was drawing pornographic material. And she looked at me, I looked at the ground. And that was the advent of me thinking that I'm really creative.
Hey, Ed, can I it's funny because I had an experience kind of like that. I used to.
Oh, really?
No. I used to.
25 cents?
No. I used to draw superheroes, and they all wore tight outfits.
Oh.
And my mom didn't want me drawing them because she thought it was too close to nudity. So she wanted me to draw, but she didn't want me to do superheroes because they had tights on. So I had kind of the same experience.
Bulge will do it every time.
Okay, I better pull this back. Candace, what about you?
I don't know how I'm supposed to compete with these two stories. Okay, my Beatles connection, when the New York Times said Beatles invade America, I was frightened because I thought it was bugs. I was very frightened. I was just like, "Mommy, what are we going to do? They're coming. Bugs are coming." So I didn't draw any bugs or men from the UK. Making money, yeah, they were the United Kingdom, weren't they? Yeah, right? Yeah, okay. Making money in high school, I didn't draw to make money, but bus cards were like $10 a month, a student bus card, and some of my friends didn't have the $10. So I said, "Oh, I can make that." So a red flare pen, a black flare pen, a pencil, then I would make it and I would rough it up so it would look used, and I would laminate it and I would sell it for $2. I could have been a forger. To this day, I can look at any of your signatures for a half of a moment and replicate it without any kind of stuttering. I could have done that, but somehow I decided not to be illegal. So I did a BFA in undergrad, both in fine arts and in performance arts. And I moved into theater very quickly, and I did theater and commercial work for years. And I finally got a job, and it was 18 months long. I've had 2 jobs in my entire life. They were both 18 months. It's not for me. But at the second job, it was for an organization called Gallery 37 in Chicago, which was the premier arts training org in the nation at the time for teens. And I was responsible for getting kids into this college of their choice. And I did it, and I got them monies. Every kid who came to me, I got them in college with full rights.
I want to talk to each of you, and I'll just throw it out, and whoever wants to start first. But I have, I should note that I've been collecting art now for 30 some odd years, and have a fairly substantial collection. And I'll share a story with you in a bit when we change over. And I'm proud to say, and I've got to get a piece of Candace's in, but I'm proud to say that both of them hang in my home. And I've known Charly and I first just met formally face to face today, but we've dealt with one another via phone and emails. And Paul and I have known each other for many, many years. But I've always said that artists, in my opinion, are storytellers and historians. That they document us in a way that many cannot, because you can bring so many things to your feeling, your flow through a pen or a brush or the like. I'm wondering how you all see that and the responsibility you may feel to make sure that you tell those stories.
I have been committed from the very beginning to tell our journey. And so early on in my career as an artist, because I loved history, and I particularly absolutely loved African and African American history. And so early work was about, Africa, the Middle Passage. We call it Reconstruction, but I call it deconstruction. Then the Civil Rights Movement and everything. But then I got to a point probably about 10 years ago, because I said, I'm preaching to the choir. We should, if we don't already know this, we should know about our history. So then it became a celebration period. And so my work now is about glorifying the beauty of blackness. And that's why you see the flowers. The flowers it's a combination of my mom passing away. My mother saw Obama get elected, but she passed before he was actually in office. And so I went, for the first time in my life, a year without creating art, because that was my shero. And so when she passed, I tried to paint, but I couldn't until I created a piece called Not Enough Flowers. And what it was a little boy, and he had a huge bouquet of flowers. And it was like, that's my mom, that's me, a little boy, and I'll be that little boy to that woman for the rest of my life. And I can paint flowers for the rest of my life, and there'll never be enough flowers to let you know how much you've made me who I am today. And so that's where the flowers, when you see flowers, every time, it may be in awkward moments in paintings, like, why is there a flower in this piece? It's me saying, Mama, I'll never forget you. And that's what the flowers are about now. But it's not about, we've gone through the struggle, and we continue to go through the struggle. So it's not about the struggle anymore. It's about, y'all are, like, especially young people, you are so amazing. You are so beautiful. You are so powerful. You are so intelligent. You are heroes. So don't believe this narrative that others tell you. And so you'll see that consistently in everything I do now.
And we'll be telling you again where you can go see Charly's work. I was down there the other day, and how he incorporates the flowers into these paintings is extraordinary. And I would encourage you to go and make sure that you take a look. That's one of his pieces there on the easel on the top. And so, Paul, what about you in terms of, you have been telling our stories for a long time, and I love the progression that I saw, because it seemed it started in a period of Black America, and you've kind of traveled it through.
Yeah. My whole thing is that, and thank you, Charly, for your vote. I appreciate you. I've known him forever, but just to answer the question, I am a product of the NCA, which is the National Conference of Artists. They would convene every year in different cities throughout the United States. I met some of the most profound artists ever that were Black. And they provided me with content. John Biggers was my mentor. I don't know if you know who he is, but he was an incredible teacher, preacher, and kept me on the straight and narrow. So it was my obligation to at least talk about things that are positive in my community and are not positive in my community. We are doing a piece called the KKK series. That is kids killing kids. And I took 6 other artists to do the piece because I wanted to get them in each different generations, because we all are facing the same problem, and we have to stop it. And it came from a young man in Dayton, Ohio, who did a KKK series. His name is James Pate, and his was Kin Killing Kin. Then I heard of another rapper.
It was brilliant.
Yeah.
It was absolutely brilliant.
Then I heard of another rapper who did the same thing, the KKK series, and it was about kings killing kings. So I'm saying this is how we contribute. But mine was not only about the problem, but the solution. We made sure that you painted the solution on what you thought we can do to help solve this problem via annihilating our future. That's exactly what's happening. We keep shooting, killing people who could be brilliant people, or who are incarcerated, or who are maimed, and who are just in the way of a bullet. Because that doesn't mean that just because you're shooting at somebody that you're going to hit them. You can hit anyone. So that content came to me from Afrocobra, came from me from John Biggers, Elizabeth Catlett, Samela Lewis. All of these were brilliant, contextual artists. One artist who I really wanted to meet was Charles White, and never got that chance. But I met, the Beardens and Tom Feelings and all of these other people at the conference, at the National Conference of Artists. I no longer wanted to paint from my own ego. I wanted to paint the content. There was somebody said to me, those who control the image control the mind. And they gave me the exact example of the Vatican. The Vatican has artwork all over there. The Medicis paid for a lot of that. They made the Catholic Church the highest form of religion based on the artwork, statues, propaganda, really. And we believed it. I mean, look at what every time the Pope dies, they have another Pope going up, and, he's held in high esteem. We should hold ourselves in those high esteems. We have to mentor. We have to give back. It's not even, it doesn't belong to us. Whatever we've learned does not belong to us. And if you do take it as your own ego, then you have failed. You really have, because I was taught by excellent teachers. And those teachers told me they don't make no mistakes. When they gave that stuff to me, said, you got to pass it on, man. It don't belong to you. And I said, okay. So I'm sorry to take up so much of your time, but that is a real serious question. And I love to answer those kinds of things.
What about for you, Candace? I know that along with your artwork, particularly when we talk about the environment, you're into making sure that, when we're gone, our children, grandchildren will have resources and the like. But give me a sense of how you've been able to translate the passion of our story through your art.
So I was not blessed enough to have incredible Black people in my life who were artists. I knew nary one, not one. And so I relied on family story. So I had a grandfather who was the family storyteller, not the historian, the storyteller. And so he was always reaching back 1 generation, 2 generations, 3 generations to the start of our family in New Orleans. And so he could call out all of the names, how everybody was interconnected, how we went over and bought Mariah Kirkendall from Kentucky and took her back to the Crescent City. She was woefully sad because her sister was left on the plantation, so he made some more money and went back to Mariah to Western Kentucky and bought her sister and took her there. So those were the stories that I knew. And I said, I can't let those stories go because my family is dwindling. It's like, it's petering out. And I said, I can't let the stories go, but I can't let the stories of any of us go. So I did a series of collages called 6 Generations of an American Family, because we are indeed an American family. And so I took stories and images of my family, from Mariah Kirkendall to the first Mr. Hunter, his first name has been lost to history, through all these generations, and I created fantastical collages based on the different generations that were stemmed in my family story, but fueled and floored by all of our stories. So it wasn't just where they were in New Orleans. It wasn't just where they were in the Carolinas. It was all of our stories were embedded in the collage work. So that was the first time I did anything that was history. And then I had a wonderful gallerist who's no longer with us, Nicole Smith of Nicole Gallery in Chicago. And after she passed, I said, I got to do something different. And so that's when I started doing activist work. And my work is based on water, women and water rights, and knowing that the people who are most affected by a lack of clean water are women and girls of melanin. They look like every gal in here, wherever they are, whether they're in Central America, Sub-Saharan Africa, India, or Flint, or Choctaw Reservation, they look like the women in this room. And so we have to know that water and the inability to get it is corporate and governmental greed. It ain't God. It's not God. It's not the ozone. It's government and I'll get off. That's a soapbox I get on. So I'm gonna come off of that one. But if anybody wants to talk about water and women, find me later.
And you'll be able to see that through her work, which is being displayed up there. So make sure that you check that out. Let me ask you guys just a quick question before we trade you out, and we'll let the gallerist come and talk to you a little bit about the investment of and what to look for, and then we'll bring everybody back up. But I'm curious, Paul, let me start with you, as you have had the longest career. You know, whether we like to admit it or not, I think many of us, particularly those who are performative, eventually think about legacy, I think. You know, it doesn't have to be egomaniacal, but you want to think about the thumbprint you leave, because to your point, it's not just about us, but we should leave our thumbprint. You know, the world, and particularly those you touch, should know, even after you're gone, that you were here. What do you want your work to be? What do you want it to speak?
I want the lessons that I've learned to speak through my work, because those lessons have been passed down. And mentorship is really important to me. As I was saying before, it doesn't belong to me. But there is one thing that John left me with. It's a simple phrase, and I'm not going to take your one. No. It's a simple phrase. He says, your job is what you get paid for, but your calling is what you're made for. And that seals it. It makes me know that if I follow my calling, I'm following my truth. And if I follow, because I don't always tell the truth, I'm going to tell you right now. But in my work, I have to, because that's been passed down to me. So I don't know what legacy that I'm going to leave. I don't even think that way, but that's usually told by other people, you know, outside of me. All I know is that I have to stay with my calling. And if I do that, then I'm in pretty good shape.
Charly, what about for you?
I'm just going to steal what he said, everything he said. One of the things that's really important to me, and it comes from also Paul, is this idea that I am very intentional about mentoring artists of color. And what it's about, I have two requests. I said, I'm going to put everything I have into you, but I need you to do two things. One, succeed. Two, pass it back. You know, Kendrick Lamar, I quote hip-hop artists all the time. Kendrick Lamar said, if I teach you the game, take it back to the hood and pass it on. And so it's very much about, if I give you this, I need you to go on to the next one. And I think what's fortunate about me at this point in my life is that I'm not personally offended when they don't recognize that they're in the presence of a Paul Goodnight. But I'm like, you don't understand the gold that you just missed. And I've had that encounter over and over again. It was like, you don't know. But you have to be aware, respect, and do your research. You know, and so like that story that John shared with you, you share it with me, and I share it all the time. It's the ham and eggs. All right, I'm gonna say it wrong, but I'm gonna do it anyway. But this is what the point is, because I'm not gonna waste time with people that think they're amazing artists and they're average. Because I said to artists before, I'm not here to be your friend, I'm here to be your teacher. So if I say something to you that might be painful, it's also honest. But Paul shared the story, John Bigger's ham and eggs, and it was at breakfast time, you have eggs and you have bacon, right? The chicken is involved, but the pig is committed. Are you committed or are you involved? I don't spend time with people that are involved. You know, and I'm going to call you on it, like you called me on last year, which I really appreciate, really, because it's like if Paul saw something and said, "This one, you dialed that one in, didn't you?" I'm like, "Oh man, you got me right." You know, and it's like, but I said thank you because I can get comfortable and lazy right now and just do, because now, which I'm not even. It's a blessing to continually have people collecting the work, but you can get to a point where you can get lazy because now people are collecting because of your name. You're Charly Palmer or Paul Goodnight. I want one. So I can put anything together and
Or
they might
Candace
buy
Hunter.
it. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Candace. Candace. I'm sorry. Or you know, hey, Candace. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm sorry because I would have walked away saying, so thank you. I appreciate it. I really do. But it's, so it's like, I don't want people to collect my work because of my name. I want them to be moved and inspired and uplifted by it. And if you're not feeling those things, because I've seen collectors do it before, they will collect it, put it in a closet, wait for it to go up in value, and then resell it. You know, I have 5 kids, and my youngest, who's over here right now, who's a fantastic artist, Gwyneth. All right, but she is the most talented of all of them. The rest of them are men. But she's got the most talent, and it's very much about challenging her to uplift it but continue to tell the story. And it's funny, like everybody in here also being parents, you swear they're not listening. Right. Like you keep saying stuff, and it's like they're not listening. They resisted it, and then like lately, as she's gotten older and better, she says, "I always tell my friends that my dad said this, or my dad said that." I'm like, I didn't know you were listening. But it's that kind of thing about lifting it. Inspiring, pushing forward the next generation.
Can I say one thing? There's a fella. Stand up, James. You have to see James at work over there. It's in black and white. It's a huge face. We have another fella, Larry Pierce. He couldn't make it, but his work is he's the most imaginative person that I know of. In terms of his using his imagination and expanding on it.
And before we send everybody out, Charly has also brought someone that he's been mentoring. We'll tell you about all of those, and in fact, we'll walk you up there and point them out. So we'll make sure that we do this, Candace, because I'm not gonna forget you because you ain't doing it. You ain't doing that to me. Give us. Quickly, what you want your legacy to be, and then we're going to trade you out for the gallery. So we're going to ask Danny. I know he was over there eating. So Danny, you got to make your way up front, man. But tell us what you want your legacy to be.
I want my legacy to be someone who starts to read because I painted. Someone who starts to act because I painted. Someone who starts to question because I painted.
Please give them all a round of applause. I'm going to ask you three to take seats over here. And you can leave your mics on the chair. We are now going to bring our gallerists up and ask them to take those seats. Whatever you like, because I'm afraid now. Candace might say we sat you wrong, but you can't have my chair. Let me introduce you to 3 gallery owners. They play a very important role in art. For those of you who are beginners or thinking about jumping in the pool. As I said, I've been collecting now for 30 plus years, but it has been an education for 30 years, and I'm still learning. And sometimes art can be intimidating to people. They think there's something special you should look for or something. Sometimes, and I tell people, do you like it? It's sometimes that simple. Do you like it? Do you want to take it home? But gallery owners can be an important tool for your learning. So let me start at the far left. And this gentleman, his gallery is in Southfield, Michigan, right outside of Detroit. Ian Grant has been in the game for 2+ decades. Umoja Fine Art Gallery, as I said, is in the Detroit area, and I met Ian 2-3 years ago.
Yes.
Now, yeah, and just one of those guys that we hit it off. We shop at the same place for clothes in Detroit, but you just hit it off with people sometimes, and he was just one of those guys that wanted to make sure that you didn't get out of there not only without buying, but without learning something about the art and the artist. And he too always pushes a young artist. So please give Ian a round of applause.
Thank you very much.
Pam Eatman is also in the Detroit area. She is the newbie on the block by means of sheer years, and I'll let her tell a little bit about her story in terms of how she jumped into just loving art to actually being in the game of art. Her gallery, Blackbird Gallery, is in Detroit. She also services Chicago. She kind of jots up and down I-94, hauling art back and forth in the Midwest. But please welcome her. This next guy I've known for 30+ years. Danny sold me my first original piece of art. Like many, I think my first piece of art was probably the Sugar Shack poster by Ernie Barnes, that many of us, hailed as a masterpiece, and finally the world caught up with it. But when we saw it on that Marvin Gaye cover, we knew somebody in that picture if it wasn't us. And so Danny sold me a LaShawn Beal original years ago. And I've been buying from him ever since. His gallery, Watercolor Galleries, is in Memphis, Tennessee. And Danny travels probably more than anybody I know. He will haul that big old Mercedes. There used to be some other stuff, but he's been selling a lot because he got that big Mercedes back there. But please welcome Danny Jenkins, please. Danny, can you give people just a quick sense of what they should be looking for? Because, as I said, when you're youthful and you really don't know a print from a Giclée, from a litho, serigraph to an original, what would you say to those who are starting out? What's the kind of best way to kind of jump in?
Well, to me, I can look at where I am now, selling originals, by all these great artists. But I have to go back to when we were selling offset lithographs and prints. Paul Goodnight and Charly will attest to that was a huge market. That was my introduction. 25, 30 years ago, it was like I was selling these prints, and you could not have told me that I wasn't selling the best stuff in the world. You could not have told me I wasn't an art dealer. But I will say this, that, buy what you like. I feel like that what has happened now is that maybe we've closed the door somewhat on introducing younger collectors, because we don't want them to buy prints. We want them to go straight to the originals. And is there anybody out here introducing prints as a viable means of collecting? Not really. So what we expect from these new collectors is hurry up and appreciate originals. But we didn't groom them. We didn't let them evolve. So that's the problem. It's not a problem. You just have to figure out what they can do and what their pocketbooks can do. So the originals are a better investment long-term than prints. If you can start out with originals, great. Even smaller, less expensive originals are going to grow in value. But I just feel like that there needs to be an easier way for newer collectors to get prints and for us to make sure they know that they're acceptable in the art market and not just the originals.
Ian, I'd like to talk a little bit about the importance of black galleries. Ever since George Floyd, and we all can attest to this, the world looked at black folk differently for a minute. I kept reminding people from day one, this ain't gonna last. You say what you want, this ain't gonna last. They loving us for a minute. because, you know, and then Montgomery came, they're going to love us for another 30 seconds. But what I am finding is, quite frankly, and I never say that black artists shouldn't attach themselves to a white gallery. That would be foolish too. And let's be honest, I understand that often white galleries can crack a market that black galleries can, and therefore the dollar amount will go up in value. But I also remind black artists that I think it's important for us to not price ourselves out of our community, and that we find a way to have that duality, if you will. It's very important, I believe, to make that. Give me a sense of how you've been looking at that, because you and I have talked about that, but that's reality. There is a sense of co-opting black artists that I've seen over the last 4 or 5 years that I'm distressed by, frankly.
Well, pretty much, I'll take it back to the 90s and what helped the art market to grow pretty much and get people interested. And it was the shows like Different World, The Cosby Show, on and on and on. And with the artwork being in the background where people could see their artwork, people like Paul, Charly, on and on, having their work being on the TV show. So people started collecting prints at that particular point in time. So we were one of the largest publishers and distributors of African American art through the print world. We were not a gallery. We started out as publishers and distributors. We were distributing to all the galleries throughout the United States. Now, at that particular point in time, let's say 1996, 2000, we had 4,000 to 5,000 galleries across the United States. And so we were distributing artwork to these galleries. And after 2007, with the housing crisis and everything going on, we went pretty much from 4,000 to 5,000 African American or black galleries down to maybe 300 to 500 galleries today across the country. And so the marketplace has changed pretty much. And so we had to change with that marketplace in order to survive. And the way we were able to get into the original market was because we had the artists coming to Umoja Fine Arts anyway to sign the prints to be able to distribute throughout the United States. So after that shift was made and we did not have that world anymore to really distribute the fine arts anymore through prints and lithographs and things of that nature, we got into the art business. But the thing that we have done today to try to help preserve that, if you go to our website, you could download a book free from us. It's called The Language of Fine Arts. And basically what that book tells you pretty much is what a lithograph is, what a print is, what a serigraph is, on and on and on. So it helps to educate you about the different levels of the art market from what we've heard over the years all the way up to an original. And, as Danny indicated, that's part of the challenge that we face today. The educational process is not there. So we try to educate, and we think it's very, very important to educate.
What's the name of the book again?
It's called The Language of Fine Arts. I have my information up there on our website where you could go on and you could digitally download it free. That's at umojafinearts.com. You can digitally download the book free, and it teaches you about art and collecting art all the way up to originals from prints.
And as I said, each one of the galleries, you'll be able to pull some information off the tables and have that if you didn't jot it down. Pam, I found your story interesting. If you would share it with him in terms of how you decided to go from just collecting, loving, then collecting to now, being intimately involved in the art world.
So, thanks, Ed. I grew up around art. My parents collected art. I didn't really know what a collector was, and I don't know if I still, that word is very broad. So I believe that people acquire art, and they acquire it for multiple reasons. There is the fact that they just love the work, and they have heard of an artist that they should be collecting, and then from a dealer's belief that you collect for financial and investment gain, and all three of those, hold true. So getting back to what I was introduced to art at a very early age, and when I was a young child, my sister and I had to take classes at the Art Institute of Chicago, the summer programs, and my mom's like, look at you, and actually they would hang the children's work, and I said, I'm in a museum. I think I was like 6 years old, I'm in a museum. But I grew to love the arts. So I also got my degree, my bachelor's in fine arts, so I am an artist. But, circumstances happen, life happens, and I got into business. So I was in corporate America for many years. Moved from Chicago, and so I spent the first 40 years of my life in Chicago, moved to Detroit. My husband we purchased a distribution company in Detroit that served the automotives and so forth. But I've been in corporate America for a while. So about 15 years ago, I said, I want to have a gallery. I want to be able to pull from, number one, my love of art, my love of artists, and just, that for me, there's a spiritual connection to art. And I think that's kind of where it starts for most people. They feel drawn to a work. So, we talk about investments, what should I buy? How do I know what I should buy? For me, personally, it's a gut feeling. I just know. I'm drawn to something, and something attaches itself to me. And I personally believe, you follow that instinct, and it will serve you, because then it becomes yours, and it's in your surroundings, and you begin to love it and don't want to part with it. So going back to why I got into the business is that I've always wanted a gallery, as I mentioned, but I always have felt that art is a spiritual connection. And before, you talked about the story of art and talked about artists and their story. For me, the story comes first. The meaning from the artist, what they're trying to communicate. They're storytellers, they're authors. And I think that when you surround yourself with our story, because I sell black art, international artists, national, local, but I believe our story is cross-generational, it's cross-cultural, it's across the waters. So you love something and you want to be involved. And like, you were saying, it never becomes a job. It's no longer a job. So I love what I'm doing. And as a gallery owner, you have to have a vision. It has to be clear. And then you have to learn from your mistakes and move, and learn from each other. I think the arts community, gallerists are, it's not a competition. It's not a competition. It's really, it's the art.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of a competition, though. When y'all get up there.
Yeah, it's a competition.
But I feel you.
Yeah.
But watch, when you get up there, it's going to be a little bit of a competition. Danny, let me ask you this, Danny. I really believe in assisting. If you love art, you want to assist those who create it, and who patronize it, and who help funnel it to us. Danny and I have helped him be engaged with some artists in Africa. The burgeoning talent in Africa is incredible. It is truly, it just knocks your socks off, as they used to say back in the day. Danny, give me a sense of how people should view buying art, because a lot of people buy art and thinking the minute they bought that piece, it's going to increase in value, and that is not the case. Give people, again, an understanding of, how you should start to learn about the investment of art, because I tell people investing in art is like investing in anything else. The stock market, you need to learn it. You can't just buy and assume you know what's going on. So can you share a little bit of that?
Yes, so if we look at these two phenomenal artists right here. Three. Oh my God, 3. Y'all stop playing with me. 3 of them. But seriously though, so when I met Paul and I met Charly.
Wait. Let's make sure though that we understand, because I don't want any 1 or 2 people say, "There's the lady." It's not a slight to Candace.
No, it's not.
That, so.
I've never
Candace,
met.
I hope you don't take it that way.
I want to meet Candace.
I'm sure you don't.
There's a song called "It's a Man's World."
No. So here's what I want to say.
Yeah, but that song. Right. Now, well, let's be clear. That song was in the 60s. Y'all done took over. Beyonce done,
That's right.
Go ahead,
the thing
Danny.
is, I have never met Candace, but I carry Candace's work through another gallery, through my friend in New Orleans, Stella Jones. And she wanted me, we were going to do a show at my gallery together. And that was in the COVID or something, but I'm so honored to meet you, and we're going to work together. I promise you, I can sell your work. So I will get to know you.
I sell her work.
Good. That's right. And we all can sell our work. Everybody selling should sell Candace's work. But no, so what I want to say is that when I met these guys, I would have never guessed that their work would have been, as the value that it is now. So how do you know? Man, I don't know how to tell you to know. I know that there are certain artists who are on a fast track, who you can watch their navigation, watch their evolution, and then you have other artists. But then, here's the thing. I think policies and formulas of how to become a successful artist are more in place because of the Paul Goodnights and the Charly Palmers, because they're putting out the blueprint. They're putting out the blueprint on how to make that happen. So I haven't been able to figure out how to take a guy who's 25 and I think is great, but his career never goes anywhere. And then other artists, I think there's a certain formula, and maybe the artists can speak to that more, because for us, we want to support all the artists. So how do you pick two artists that you want to support?
Ian, let me give you the same question. And I feel like a lot of times in art, the creation of, it really is the wind sometimes that blows one way or the other. I think it's less about talent than it is luck sometimes, opportunity coming your way. You look at singers that make it and you can find 10 singers that are better technically, but they don't sell as many records. I remember Phyllis Hyman was, but she was livid. She had me cornered at BET one day, mad because Jody Watley was singing and selling more albums. She said, "Okay, any children here?" She said, "Nah, Ed, you know goddamn well that girl can't sing." But sometimes it has a little to do with that. So tell us about how you see that.
Well, Ed, as you know, I retired 2 years ago from being a marketing executive at a major corporation. So there is a big difference out here. What's the difference between a $10 artist and a $10,000 artist, whether they sing or whether they're painting? And basically, it's the investments. It's the investment that the galleries or the gallerist is going to make into that individual to help push their careers. Because let's just take singing, for instance. One person could sing better than the other person, like you're just saying, but because of the investments that's been made into that individual around the country and to put all the marketing programs into them, the products, the pricing, and everything to develop them correctly across the United States. That's what makes the difference between a $10 artist and $10,000 artist. And right now, we're developing young artists that are 25 and 30 that we see are selling at the $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 rate, because we're taking them on the road. We're taking them to the major shows like Art Basel Miami. We're bringing them to the Martha Vineyards of the world. We're taking them around the world so people can see them, that they can be captured, and so that they can be known. And basically, it takes you investing into the artist. But again, you have to first like the work that you're purchasing. That's very, very important. And from there, they go to building generational prosperity. And that's very, very key, too, in building generational prosperity and also building generational wealth.
Let me have you answer the same question, if you will, give a sense of what they should watch. And then we're going to switch out the chairs and bring six chairs up so we can have you all rejoin, and then I'll come out for some Q&A,
Right.
if you will.
Sure. And I agree with what Ian is saying in terms of building. So with my gallery, because I'm new, I really didn't know a whole lot in terms of the art dealer. And so I just kind of instinctually said, okay, this is great art, whether I'm going through Instagram, Facebook, online, and say, wow. And I just reach out and I call the artist and I have a conversation. I don't even tell them I'm a gallerist at some point. So what I'm finding is I use my gut instinct, and I encourage everyone to use that gut. There's something that catches you. So from there, as you were saying, being a gallerist is hard work, and it's a lot of money. And but it's important. It's important that we tell the story through an artist's eyes. It teaches our children. It really, there's value to art. And I was reading in Art Basel puts out this publication that art appreciates about 7.5% every year. And that's not across every ethnicity, but Black art right now is the most collected art anywhere in the country. There are white New York blue chip galleries that almost their whole gallery has turned from white art, European art, to Black and African art.
I would say that it's probably the most collected genre of art in the world.
Right now in the world.
I really believe it. It's the
Absolutely.
most exciting.
We're the
Absolutely.
fastest growing segment of the entire art world.
Right, is
And you
Black
guys
art.
got to have the opportunity to get a piece of it. But the thing is, when we as African Americans are telling you this, we take it for granted. But when the Caucasians come in and tell us, it's really too late. But then we want to listen, and then we say, oh, we missed the opportunity.
That's right.
So we're telling you right now.
Yes.
So,
Go ahead, finish
oh,
up.
I was just going to say that. So we have to turn the tables. And I was having this conversation the other day. So what's happening in Florida? What's happening within our schools? They're taking away our story. They're banning our books. You can't ban art, right? And it's how we express ourselves. And Black folks have to buy art. And to make it accessible, accessibility is huge. So, I have a program. It's not a layaway, but you pay over 12 months, and it's managed by a New York financier, and you don't pay interest. We've got to get it into the hands of our own. We own our story. They don't own our story.
Let me say though, let us be careful, because they have banned art historically, and we have to be careful that we don't allow that to happen, because it can be done. And I would tell y'all, just call it layaway.
It is layaway.
You know we love layaway.
It's okay.
Don't
okay.
take. See, you talking about them banning? Don't take layaway from us.
Well, no. He's like, one customer, he's like, I want that one, but I really want that one. I said, well, you can get both, because you can pay over the next 12 months, and that's what they do.
Yes, that's
know?
what she told me too often.
And I think we all have finance programs,
We all have
that's
finance.
available.
Absolutely.
But we don't want to use layaway. We
Okay,
pass.
I feel it. I forgot we on the island. It ain't layaway in Martha's Vineyard.
That's right.
It's layaway in Detroit, though. I don't know what it is. Danny, you want to close out, and then we're going to trade out something. But then I'm going to share a story with you that shows the difference in their buying art and our buying art.
And and that's probably what I want to close with, is that years ago I was in New York, in Harlem, at midnight trying to get a haircut. Lo and behold, man, they in there playing the music, they drinking, and they cutting hair at 12 o'clock midnight. And I walked in there, and while I was waiting to get a haircut, I picked up a magazine, a New Yorker or something, and I was reading an article on this lady, this Jewish lady, who was trying to open a gallery in Soho. And they were questioning if she had what it took, if she could make it, should she be doing this? And you know why they were questioning it? They said she had only made 2 or 3 $20 million sales the year before, and somebody that bought a $50 million piece did not use her to resell it. At that moment, I knew where I was because I'm selling prints. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, wow. I says and that speaks to what you said, and what you said is about us working together. They work together more. And if you only sell a couple $20 million deals, then you ain't even up to par. So it's like, what? A $20 million deal? I'm retiring.
Well, so the Jewish community owns the arts.
Yes.
They own the arts, and you can learn from that. And white folks, excuse me, To be politically correct. So there are wealthy people that buy art and they never see it. It goes into a vault.
She's right. She's right.
And it is for investment purposes because you're not taxed on an investment. Okay? And it's the only investment that really never decreases.
Yes. Yes.
So that's another thing. And leave it to your children, you know?
So let me share this with you while we trade out the seats. We're going to do that now, Jen. We're going to trade the seats out. So if I can just have you guys sit there for a second, we'll trade these seats out. Let me share this story with you guys. So I mentioned to you about Ernie Barnes. And I, like many people who grew up in my era, loved Ernie Barnes. Good Times, you saw his paintings. That was JJ. And then, of course, Marvin Gaye's classic album, The Sugar Shack. So I interviewed Ernie many years ago on BET. And he sent a signed print back to me saying it was one of the best interviews he'd ever had and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, that's great, you know. So some years later, I thought, okay, I made a little bit more money. So I called him because we kept in contact. I said, hey, Ernie, I think I'm at a place where I can buy one of your originals. And by then, Ernie, for a black artist, was still selling, not what he probably should have been selling for, but he was up there. And so I said, I think I can buy one of your pieces. So he says, well, I don't have a lot of inventory, but when you come to LA, whatever's there, come on in, I'll work with you, and we'll get you something. Great. Go to LA a few weeks later. I walk in, and again, if you remember Sugar Shack, there was a woman, singular woman, dancing in a yellow dress. One of the shoes is off. She's up. Later, I found it's actually on the cover of a B.B. King album. And so I walked in, and I walked in, and I said, oh, Ernie, that's it. That's the one. So I said, and I'm thinking in my head, Ernie says he's going to work with me. So I said, that's the one. He says, okay, all right. So we went over there, and his assistant told me what it cost. I said, Ernie, that's not the one. That is not the one. So I found another one, and it was great. No, I didn't lay away that one. But I found another one. He worked with me. He was very gracious, and I got that one. So about a month later, his assistant, Luce, calls me. She said, Ed, you know that painting that you loved? I said, yeah. She said, Ernie wanted me to call you first before we called anybody. He says he thinks he can get it for you. I said, Luce, I just bought this other one. I said, Luce, I ain't got it like that. I said, I love it, but she goes, would you listen? So I said, okay. She said, Ernie was commissioned by a law firm and to do 3 or 4 paintings. And they did 3 or 4 paintings. And they were finished, and she called the law firm and said, we finished your paintings. Where would you like them delivered? Oh, and by the way, you overpaid us $25,000. Where would you like us to send the check? And the head of the law firm says, tell an art lover you're welcome. That's exactly what I said. So I quickly called my mentor and I explained the situation, and he said to me, you believe the artist is worth what? I said, absolutely. He said, well, you need to hurry and get off the phone, because I don't know where you will receive in one day, wherever we put your money, a $25,000 windfall. But I say that to say, here was a man who really threw away, like we would throw away $5, $25,000. Now, I was the beneficiary of that, and I'm not complaining. And after Sugar Shack sold, I'm really not complaining. But I say that to say it is not an even playing field for us in the art world in terms of purchasing. But to Pam's point, Bob Johnson, the founder of BT, I asked him one day, I said, Bob, how come rich people, this is naive, but I said, how come rich people always buying art? And he said exactly what you said. He said, if you look historically, no matter whether it was war, famine, whatever it is, art did not decrease in value. And he talked about, though, don't just buy unless it's an extraordinary buy. Don't just buy it to think you get, buy what you love. Yeah. Buy what you love. And so that's just a little story about, the luck that came my way. But again, the wealth gap that continues to grow in this country. And I would say if you really start looking at purchasing art, sometimes it is better than putting it in a T-bill, or it's certainly better than sitting in a bank with the non-interest that they pay you there. So I'm going to ask our guests to come back up, take some seats, and we're going to do a little Q&A before we send you out to take a look at this wonderful, wonderful art. So if you have a question, already hand up. All right, my man. Let me go over here and work my way. Now, does everybody have a mic?
Oh, just.
All right. Question? Come up here for me if you don't mind.
I ain't gonna take the mic. How y'all doing today? Good. My name is Josh Farrell. I am from Atlanta, live in Atlanta with my beautiful wife here, Kristen, as well.
Hey, Kristen, stand up, girl.
Yeah, big fan of Charly. That's our guy right there.
And Candace.
And Candace. Hey, Candace. So my question is, we're relatively new collectors. We've been collecting for just over a year. I'm 29 years old, and we're still trying to learn more about this whole art scene. We got the bug. We're addicted at this point. We're at an art event every single week. But you guys have made several comments about art appreciating and never depreciating, but we have been to so many shows where we'll see new artists selling their pieces for $10,000, and they just came out yesterday. So how do you determine what is actually the right price for these works that are out there?
Anybody want to jump on that? Because I will tell you what I think, because I have that same thought. So.
Right. Well, I'm going to say something.
Hello, my mic's on.
Okay, so I'm going to say something real quick. Is that, that is a tough question, but you have to use what, like Ed said, buy what you like, buy within reason. I agree that an artist that comes out on Tuesday cannot, ask $10,000, but they do. And so you have to make the determination. Always get information from the artist. What is their pedigree? Who's commissioned their work? Who's collected their work? That'll help you to determine if that value is a solid value.
And another thing that I find is that there are a lot of artists out there, tons and more than I've ever seen before, because they see the money that is, being generated from. And so I like to do my research and just go on Instagram. Look at, you're going to see a lot of artists with that same style, whether it's taking the background of Candace Wiley or if it's, so I think look for originality is one, and look for the story. What do you say longevity? Like Afrofuturism right now. I have an artist that does Afrofuturistic original art that is fantastic. Look to the future, as well.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Also, just wanted to say, Paul and Charly talked a lot about mentors. So try to develop relationship with gallerists and curators, people that you can trust in, that you could take the information to, that can help you research or tell you where to research about the artist or where they think that particular artist might be going, and develop relationship with the galleries also.
Let me also say that social media has changed the game, right? So it used to be you had to go to the gallery to see it, and art was kind of mystical and you weren't sure. Now, you can go on somebody's Instagram page, see all of their art and the like. So what's happened is younger artists are seeing kind of an entry-level price, usually about $5,000 or $6,000, and they figure, well, they're getting it. I used to tell her, well, I can get a so-and-so for that much. So here's what I would suggest to you. No matter how low you are on the rung of buying or how high you go, part of my fun in being a collector is haggling. Right? So if you think about our nature, many of the tribes in Africa, that's all part of who we are, the haggling. I will tell you, Each one of them I have haggled with.
More than enough.
Some I've won, some I've lost, right? Sometimes you're going to lose a piece, and sometimes they're going to be gracious enough to say, because sometimes they want you to have it, because they know the home or that you love it or whatever the case is, right? So you just have to kind of say to yourself, what am I, because I tell the gallery folks all the time, here's what I am willing to pay. It doesn't mean that I don't think that your price is wrong. It's just what I'm willing to pay. Mm-hmm. And depending on how good their month was, truthfully, they'll tell you no or yes. So, it's all about learning the haggle.
And then you come back, though. That's what I love about you. You come back. You continue to buy.
Well, yes. I mean, and part of it is just supporting. I had this conversation with everybody. Paul and I have been doing business for a long time now. If you're just trying to get the hookup one time, they will quickly find out whether or not you're earnest about your love of art and whether or not you will be a customer that they will forge relationships with and buy over and over. And I would also tell you this, try to bring them friends. I've tried to do that as well. So
Thank you on that one, Ed.
One other thing, that there are now more books out. In fact, Charly has one here. And you can read about these artists. You can figure out, their history and that kind of thing. If you're really interested in it, then, go ahead. There's books on Charles White and John Biggers, all of these artists who have passed away. But now there are books on artists on our level, too. And it's really good to know a little bit about the history of a person before you buy it. Even though you might love it, you just have a whole nother, you got more information.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Just smacking my hand, keep the mic. First of all, I just want to commend all of the artists, the gallerists that are here, and Ed and Black Enterprise for just a marvelous, marvelous session. Everybody, I think we should give them another hand. I went to the Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, and Albert Barnes, who collected a lot of art, Renoirs, Matisse, Picasso's at the turn of the last century, and he brought them back to outside of Philadelphia, and he couldn't stand that upper crust art community that looked down on people because they weren't of a certain ilk and felt that they didn't have the disposition to appreciate art. And he was best friends with Julian Bond's father, Horace Mann Bond, who was the president of Lincoln, and he set up a foundation and made Lincoln's appointed trustees 5 of the 7 positions that controlled that art. Well, Julian Bond did a documentary, long story short. They called it The Art of the Steal. Eventually, the governor of the state, they stole that money now. It's worth $30 billion. It's downtown Philadelphia. Fisk went through a similar thing with George O'Keeffe. The point I'm trying to make, and what I'd like for you all as artists and gallerists, experts on art, to speak about is the level of appreciation that we know we have as a people to be able to not only understand how to view art and to treat art, but also how to value it. Can you speak to that?
Well, before we get into that particular part, I think this is very, very important, and it's important for me. You got to remember the arts, and this African-American art represents us, who we are and whose we are. And through history, as time moves on and they come back, they're going to come back first to the arts to take a look at that, to see how we lived during this time period and how we represented ourselves during this time period. So for me, it's very important that we have black images, and you have black images in your home, because subliminally, it's very important in your mind that you feel strongly about who you are and that you're proud of who you are as an individual, and you're not wanting to be like someone else because they've been feeding that to us. And that's why they show us images, because images are worth 1,000 words.
So let me just quickly, Art of the Steal is a perfect example of it, but it's this whole idea of us lack of understanding. But the information is all there. The books are there. Tahima Taha has one of the very first books on collecting Black art, and now it's like we got a couple of hundred out there now. But when she went to sell this, publisher says people won't buy it. But she pushed it anyway, and 25 years later, like I said, there's several other books out there like that. And so we are too often caught up in the rules that were never established or meant for us. And it's up to us to change the rules. And I think that a good example of even our education or our background, we didn't follow those rules, and we don't adhere to them now. And so how we approach everything is very much different than what we've been told, because we literally can change the rules because there's enough money and love and appreciation among us. And before I say anything, we talk about representatives. My agent's right here, Valerie Francis has Nowhere Gallery, so you get a chance to check that out. But
Valerie, would you stand and then tell everybody the address and where they can find it? And I went to the gallery the other. It's a beautiful gallery.
Thank you. Thanks for this opportunity. Oops, sorry. It's on that. So yes, I'm Valerie Francis and own Nowhere Art Gallery, which is located at 91 Dukes County Avenue. It launched in 2019, so we're celebrating the start of our 5th year. And we're so grateful for community and artists who've supported us to get us here. In addition to that, we've expanded to a new space, and that opened in 2020 called Center of Nowhere. We're side by side with Zeta, Cousin Rose Gallery, which is on Circuit Avenue, 73 Circuit. Thank you.
So as you're downtown in Oaks Bluff, you just kind of make your way down there. And Paul, your work is right next door, right?
I have a show that opens up on next Saturday.
So for those of you who will be here, I'm going to take just a couple more questions because we do want you to kind of work your way back there and take a look at the art. And we will encourage both Paul and Charly to show you the emerging artists that they've brought. And they're showing at your gallery as well. So we're going to make sure that we do that because, again, I think it's very important that we do more than just talk about this. We really do need to support one another. You had a question? Can you make your way around here if you don't mind?
I'm also from Philadelphia. My name is Stephanie Daniel. I've represented October Gallery for many years as their spokesperson, familiar with some of these artists. I'm also an art teacher in the city of Philadelphia, and I love what I do. I have parents who don't appreciate and tell their kids art is not important. Do your math, do your ELA, your English language. Don't worry about what she's teaching you. Ultimately, I have children that I have to give C's and D's to, who I don't like to do that. How can I get parents to open up their minds? I even put up on the walls of my school the kids who don't do my lessons very well because I want to encourage their work and their creative process. But the parents don't seem to care.
Okay, so can I, this will be brief. It is a commercial. This book is in honor of W.E.B. Du Bois. It is taken from the Brownlees book that was produced in 1920. My wife and I, Dr. Karita Brown, produced this. It has 25 noted Black artists and writers. They're all original, although we pulled something from the original Brownlees book, 1920, that Du Bois had produced. And it's a love letter to Black families. So it's a reminder of how special we are. And so it's books like this, we have every intentions of getting into every school that there are children of color in so they can see how amazing they truly are.
Go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think teaching is very, very important. There's an old saying or a new saying. It says, if kids don't think that you care, they don't care what you think. And that really rings the bell. So you have to find a way of interacting with them. My whole thing is that I teach everybody here has an imagination. And everybody here understands the meaning of improvisation. I break those two words down. Improvisation simply means to improve, Imagination simply means your image. So what you're doing is improving your image, and everybody has the ability to do that. I mean, it is way that we all grow. We can't evolve unless we use our imagination and want to improve on it. So that's a great way of starting the ball rolling. You find out who is involved, and you find out who is just committed.
So let me do this. I'm going to go down the line because you'll be able to see some of the work obviously here today, and we would encourage you not to wait. If you see something that you like and your checkbook allows, or your debit card, or if you can run fast and grab it, whatever the case may be.
Or your layaway policy.
Or the layaway policy.
Way away.
But what I would love to do is just once again, and you'll have an opportunity to speak with the gallerist and the artist up here when we break out. But if you can, just tell us once again where your work can be seen after today. So Pam, let me start on the far end, and I know that that'll be a shared experience in the sense of Pam will be carrying Candace's work in her show. So if we can go down the line and just
Sure. So Blackbird Gallery is located in Detroit, Michigan. If you blackbird-gallery.com. Currently, or we've most recently been in the Fisher Building. Just moved. We're moving into a new space October 1st. I'm having a pop-up tomorrow and Saturday from 1 to 8. I printed something off that shows the address. I put out maybe 20 pieces. I brought about 45 works with me. So I would love for you to come and let's talk about the work. And if you like something, you buy it. But you learn about new, emerging, and established artists.
So it's in Edgartown.
Thank you.
Tomorrow and Saturday. Please be there. Amazing works. Amazing.
Danny?
Yes, so I am showing at a restaurant called MV Salads, Martha's Vineyard Salads, from 5:30 to 9:30. And I hope one of my guys will bring me the address on the flyer. But we also have flyers over there. We'll be there from the 17th through the 23rd. Every night. Come by. It's wonderful.
And here's what I'll tell you. You can hit all of their work because it's all on the same street. So when you pick it up, you'll pick up the flyer. We'll get that. We'll get them to pick up the flyers. But once you hit that block, everybody's on the same block.
Yep.
But within 2 blocks. Go ahead, Ian.
Umoja Fine Arts Gallery out of Southfield, Michigan. We're here, and we're at Island Life Studio right on Circuit Avenue. We'll be there every day until Saturday evening from 12 to about 7. Last night we were there till 11, to be honest with you, because of the illumination, and it's been great. So thank you.
Charly Palmer, I'm represented by Valerie Francis at Nowhere Gallery on Circuit Avenue.
Oh, Paul, Goodnight. I'm represented by Cousins Rose Gallery. I just want to say one thing. Cousins Rose was Zeta Cousins and Stephen Rose. Stephen just passed away 2 days ago. So I want to give a shout out to him because it's very important. But anyways, Cousins Rose opening is on Saturday from 7 to 9, I believe it is. And it will go on, I think, for about another 2 or 3 weeks.
And if I could just say modestly, the art that we have gathered here today, if you just take a look, it's extraordinary, the talent that is sitting up here. So let me thank all of them. Again, Candace is the only one that I didn't really know, but I feel like she's part of the family now. So I want to thank them all for their friendship, for their talent, and for being here today. So one more again for them, please. I thank you all for spending your afternoon with us. Again, go spend some money. Thank you.